afternoon, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Marshall. I'm the Director of Solution Consulting here at Tealium, and I'm really excited today for our panel. Today, we're going to be talking about driving digital transformation with robust customer data platforms, and I'm joined by three amazing panelists, Mukesh, Sarah, and Rob. So over the next 30 minutes, we're going to be getting into some of their experience with Tealium in the CDP space, and we're going to kick it off by doing some introductions. So if you guys can just introduce yourself, the company that you're with, and just share a little bit about your experience with Tealium and the starting point of your journey. So Sarah, I'll kick it over to you first.
Sure. Thanks for having us, Elizabeth. So great to be with you guys today. My name is Sarah Stallnecker. I lead the North America Consumer Analytics team at New Balance, and our focus is really understanding our consumer and how do we create, more dynamic and relevant experiences for them. We've been partners with Tealium since before I joined New Balance, which was 6 years ago. So we started with TIQ. The partnership has expanded to include Audience Stream in the last couple of years. And then right now we're actually in the process of onboarding with Event Stream.
Awesome. Rob, I'll turn it over to you next.
Great, thanks. Thank you. My name is Rob Anderson. I'm with Hotwire's marketing operations team. I've been at Hotwire for the last year and a half, but I have a long experience with Tealium. I've worked with Tealium for over 8 years with a number of different engagements and clients, including Williams-Sonoma and Providence and St. Joseph Health. So I came to Hotwire in 2020, and they had already implemented TIQ, but they were just starting their journey to CDP and audience building and audience activation. And at Hotwire, I'm managing all of our first-party data integrations through Tealium's CDP platform, including our iOS and Android native apps.
Great. And Mukesh, last but not least.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Mukesh Singhania. I'm the Director of Marketing Technology at Bed Bath & Beyond. We started our CDP journey almost 2 years back. We implemented Tealium Audience Stream as our CDP, and we had the Tealium IQ as a tag management solution, which helped things a little bit. Implementation was easier because of the availability and integration with data layer. Right now, we are personalizing customer experience on all our brands across channels, and it's been an interesting journey. I'm happy to share my journey experience with everyone here.
Yeah, I think that that's a great point, right? This is a journey. It's something that's always evolving. So what I would love to really start with is, what were the business challenges that really drove your organization to begin this journey that you were looking to address when you adopted the CDP? Mukesh, you can kick it off here.
Sure. Like many organizations, we had our data silos, and we used to rely on mass campaigns run through traditional campaign management solutions. As we started our digital transformation, we found the need to optimize our marketing operations and improve the effectiveness of the campaigns that we are running. So in order to do that, it was important for us to understand our customers, their preferences, their interests, the life stages they are in. And that drove the need of centralized customer data platform, where we can ingest data from all customer touch points, create a unified view, and use the insights from that platform to generate personalized campaigns. So that's where we started off.
Awesome. Rob or Sarah, what was your journey similar, or what was your experience like from a business need perspective?
I can jump in. So we had a similar experience, although what I will say is we'd been on a journey before where we'd said we wanted to unify all of our consumer data. And so we were actually building a big piece of that in-house. So we'd gone through the process of saying, okay, we have all these disparate systems that are housing our marketing level data, right? So we had a loyalty program, we have an email subscriber list, we were sending out catalogs. Then we obviously had transactional level information that was coming through from both stores as well as our .com. And so we had gone through the process of unifying that data with the idea of that then powering everything from, enterprise level insights all the way through to experiences. But in the progress of that, we said, okay, we've kind of come to a place where we feel like we've unified our consumer level data for all of our known data sources, but there's the device ID unification There's the real-time browsing behavior. And then there's really that dynamic segmentation creation so that you can push that back out to the ecosystem. And that's when we made the decision to partner with Tealium and Audience Stream because, I think as Mukesh mentioned, we had already deployed TIQ. So in terms of having a head start, we absolutely had a head start in terms of having events already surfaced in our data layer. And we knew that we could accelerate use cases really fast with the capabilities that we had within, Tealium Audience Stream, marrying that up with obviously the work that we've done on our data side.
Got it. So there's elimination of data silos, the agility and the speed sort of to the leveraging of that data sounded like to be 3 key business drivers. Rob, anything that you would add to that you've experienced?
Sure. So when I joined Hotwire in 2020, they had already kind of started their journey to CDP, but they didn't really have a unified view of the customer across all channels, right? So both on the website and in mobile. And so with Tealium, we were able to bring some of that data together, start to stitch that customer behavior as customers usually would start on our website and then download the app and go on to convert there. We're seeing increased conversions in app, and that's going to be a point of emphasis for us going forward. And at the same time, along with a lot of folks, we saw probably the biggest 18 months of change in travel behavior, right, between 2020 and 2021. And so as our customer needs change relative to travel, having a CDP tool that marketing owns and controls, we're able to look at marketing use cases and respond to those very quickly, as opposed to waiting for kind of a more traditional turnaround or integration. We're able to leverage Tealium's connector functionality to build audiences based on data that we're seeing just month to month and be able to turn things around with marketing channel partners.
So it's interesting knowing that you sort of stepped into the CDP and weren't part of the original purchase, but I would love to hear from your perspective, what were some of the key use cases that did get prioritized for your organization, knowing that, COVID came into the picture and definitely threw in a wrench to the travel and hospitality industry?
Yeah, so originally when I came on, the CDP use cases were mostly around our email remarketing team. So they have some programs set up to target, your classic cart abandoners or, doing cross-channel purchasing or things of that nature. And so those are all very, very traditional use cases that Tealium handles very well. But then as we got into March and April, what we found was we're now seeing customer behavior. We're seeing an increase in cancellations. We're seeing a need to take care of those customers in a different way and be able to handle their concerns, about health and safety. And so with Tealium, we're able to stand up solutions that are able to address those customer concerns and target them. And as we go into 2020, we're going to reach out to customers that had both good and bad experiences in 2020 and remind them that, hey, travel's coming back and we want to encourage people to come back and continue their journey. And you can't do that unless you actually have a platform that brings that customer data together so that you know where to spend your time most effectively. So while we've been doing that, the other thing that we're doing is also looking more and more at app behavior. Because of Hotwire's platform, we target a lot of last minute travel. So users that are trying to book same day hotels or same day car. And if they're doing that, they're usually on the go. They're usually in our app. And we needed a source of dedicated app consumer data where we can do things like target with personalized push notifications and things of that nature, so that we're able to market to those customers that are on the go most effectively.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. Just being able to respond so quickly to the change in the environment with COVID. And from a retailer perspective with Bed Bath and New Balance, right, you guys saw the same shift, people not being able to go into stores. So being able to capitalize on this surge in digital traffic and really start to build out your understanding of that customer. Can you guys explain or talk a little bit about what some of the key use cases were for you that you started with and you sort of evolved to over the past year? And Sarah, maybe if you want to start first.
Yeah, sure. So we had identified, obviously we had a roadmap and a number of use cases that we said, this is what makes sense for us to partner with Tealium to deploy. I think as you just mentioned, with COVID hitting, there was some pivot points that probably happened for everybody. And I think more than anything, accelerated the transformation, particularly for retail that was already underway, just because everything was closed except for digital for a big part of time. So the insights you were able to gather on consumers, but then also creating more relevant experiences for them based on some dynamic segmentation. I mean, we did very traditional things, I think, that Robert was mentioning, which is, triggered based campaigns, whether that be a cart abandon or a browse abandon, and being able to orchestrate then those communications across touch points. So how do we make sure that if someone's opted in to receive emails, that they're not getting bombarded across the entire ecosystem with something that's in their cart? And so being able to do things like that, but then also thinking through, we have an influx of new runners. So very tactically, right? I think everybody's seen, and I was that person too that said I would never run again. And then I started running again in the middle of the pandemic. And I think the ability for us to then say, okay, these are recent new runners that we've welcomed into the business. How do we start to treat them throughout their life cycle? And so what are the appropriate time-based communications that we want to deliver? And so the ability for us to marry browse behavior, purchase behavior, right? And think through how do we then want to communicate with them with relevance downstream, I think was really compelling. And it was something that's not only gained traction internally at New Balance, but absolutely is something that we've, told our partners that are selling our products, this is something that can absolutely be successful to drive that retention.
I think one of the things you mentioned earlier was just about understanding the user and being able to leverage that information. And you talked about the life cycle, right? There's a lot of new people that you've never identified before. Right. So they're technically anonymous to the New Balance or, Bed Bath or Hotwire brand. So being able to continue to build that profile based on the anonymous and the known data and really use that to drive that personalized experience is becoming more and more important. Mukesh, anything you want to add on to your use cases from a Bed Bath & Beyond perspective?
Sorry. So we actually started off almost a year before COVID hit, and initially some of the use cases, as Rob mentioned, were cart abandoners and the generic use cases. And there are a few use cases which were very specific to Bed Bath and the kind of customer base we have. The registry is an important aspect of our brands, and life stages is something that we care about. Either you're moving or you're having a baby, you're having a wedding. Based on those life stages, your buying patterns change and your interests and preferences change. So our focus was to identify for individual customers what kind of life stage they are in, and that's driven by their either browsing behavior or surveys or any other information that we capture. And then we tailored the communication based on that information. So using CDP, it was easy for us to tailor the communications and optimize on the use cases that we were running and measure the use cases and make changes, phase out use cases if they were not performing well, and then launch new use cases faster. With COVID, the stores were closed. We were seeing a lot of increased online traffic and digital traffic. So there was an opportunity to reach out to those customers in a better way. We were personalizing content on the website as well using CDP. So from CDP, we generate audiences and use that to personalize content for different customers. So if you are a wedding customer, if you are having a wedding and you created a wedding registry on the website, if you go to the website, you may see a different homepage that is more tailored towards adding items to registry and the most popular items that people buy for a wedding registry. So that way we are trying to capture the customer's needs and serve those needs accordingly. We launched BOPUS programs very easily and also the store inventory. So we are offering customers to pick up in store, but because of that, store inventories sometimes go down. People who are going to purchase things directly in store, they go there and they don't find stuff. And that's so we were able to identify from various stores, get data on the inventory and tailor our communication at runtime. When we send out an email, we check the inventory of the store and then say that you have these items running out of inventory in the store, so go ahead and purchase. So having a flexible CDP environment made us more agile and respond to situations.
Yeah, and then the importance of really being able to bring in data from those different sources, right? Inventory, I mean, whether it's a flight inventory or clothing or shoe inventory, everybody's been challenged in that capacity. So being able to quickly respond to the customer based on the state of the inventory definitely is hugely important. Now, one of the things we've talked a lot about the technology, but always when you think about adoption of a new vendor, it's always three things: technology, people, and process. I would love to get the perspective of each one of you just from how your organization really addresses the adoption of the CDP, right? So who were the primary stakeholders that were involved in that process, and what was your experience like in convincing them that the CDP was something that you needed to move forward with for the business? And Rob, I don't know if you have probably the most interesting story here because you came in and it was already bought in, but would love to know what your experience was.
Right, and I mean, what you really touched on there is one of the reasons why Hotwire reached out to me and asked me to join the team was because they already had some internal champions for Tealium at the business that knew that they wanted to grow the platform and knew that they wanted to expand the CDP program. And to do that, you've got to bring in the right people, right? And so they reached out to me and brought me in. But going back to that last point, you need to have that champion, right? Like whether it's reaching out and finding the other people or managing recruiting, you have to have someone at the business that actually says, like, the CDP is going to be a part of us going forward. We're going to spend resources on knowing our customers and activating them and making sure that they're having a good experience with the business. And you can't do that without putting the time and effort to gather that data, build those audiences, capture those profiles, and integrate Tealium with all the different parts of your business, whether it be bringing omnichannel data in, whether it be bringing mobile data in, whether it be bringing website data in. Someone has to actually be standing up for Tealium and saying, we need the resources to actually make all those things happen. So that's the most important thing. That's the thing that at Hotwire I'm really blessed with, is we have some really good people in place that trust the product. That when we say in marketing ops that, hey, I need this data, or hey, I want to capture data surrounding this, they'll help us and go and find those resources to make that happen.
Yeah. How do you guys keep the executives or the sponsors informed and involved in the project? Like you're off doing your respective task lists of what you want to get accomplished, but how do you go back and report the success and make sure that there's buy-in to continue to get the support for resources along the way? Sarah, I don't know if you want to cover.
I think that's actually an excellent point. And I think it's the one that we all forget about, right? Because you go heads down and say, I just want to make progress. I'm working against my roadmap. I've shared my roadmap. People should know about my roadmap. And it's really about taking the step back and sharing progress. And I think what we found being really successful was we had a cross-functional, so similar to what Robert's talking about, we had a cross-functional group of stakeholders, whether they be from the technology or various marketing site, et cetera, teams on down the list, that we were constantly reminding, here's actually why we made this decision. Here's what it is enabling across our roadmap. Here's the progress in our roadmap. And oh, by the way, these are continuing to either be hurdles or challenges or roadblocks that we could actually use help eliminating, or someone to say, hey, that might not be eliminated in the near term, so that we can then say, okay, this one would probably be one for us to tackle instead. But I think I never probably recognized just how important it was to share, reshare, and then celebrate victories. And I think, and even if they're not complete victories, but it's like, hey, we launched something, we're learning this, right? And so now we're going to pivot to do this as well. I think it's just getting in the practice of feeling like you can share things in progress, and also just reminds people exactly why you're doing what you're doing, I think is critically important.
Being a journey, you have to celebrate progress over perfection, right?
Yes.
Mukesh, what about you? Talk to us a little bit about just the internal support and sponsor you needed to get.
Good, yeah, and similar to Rob, when we started off our journey, we identified a champion from each of the business units that was impacted by CDP. And we worked with them hand in hand. We had regular discussions and sessions to run strategies over various use cases, how we are going to deploy them, operationalize them, and how we are going to measure performance against them. And they helped us in a way bridge the gap and get us the buy-in and support from the stakeholders. And we also considered data and analytics team as one of our stakeholders, because we had to identify data required for different use cases, how to ingest them. We had to build that pipeline. So having them on board with us, understanding what is CDP, what we are doing, that was very important and reduced a lot of hurdles on the data side. And we also have regular cadence with the larger stakeholder teams to help them understand what we are doing, what our roadmap is, and how we are making progress, how we are contributing to the overall strategy of the organization to improve our effectiveness and performance.
So it's interesting, we're talking about the consolidation and unification of data, which is so powerful, especially across teams, right? But what I would love to know is, from a structure perspective, who within your organization, or who's actually the owner of the CDP, what team or department, right? Because you touched on it, right, Mukesh? Like, a lot of people benefit from this data, but who ultimately owns and runs it for you guys? And Mukesh, if you want to start first.
Yeah, so at Bed Bath, marketing technology team is responsible for operating the platform, but on the business side, it's owned by the campaign management team. And then campaign management team interfaces with email marketing, social marketing, and the digital teams. So we, on day-to-day basis, we work with the campaign management team, and they actually even develop the use cases with us on the platform. And then we have regular meetings with the other stakeholders as well, along with the campaign management team. We also have an intake process, which is managed by the campaign management team. We follow the Jira route where use cases are submitted, and we have weekly meeting where we review and prioritize use cases. And for each use cases, where the data is coming from, how we are going to operationalize them, how we are going to measure them, everything we discuss and share with the stakeholders. So we keep them up to date with what we are doing.
Awesome. Sarah, what about you? Who ends up owning the CDP within New Balance?
Yeah, I think it's very similar to what Mukesh was saying. So I refer to us now as air traffic control of audiences. But essentially our team, so the North America Analytics team, is hands-on keyboards in collaboration with the Tealium folks on standing up the individual audiences that are required to hit the use cases. But I'd say we've got a very strong partnership with our business intelligence team, who actually manages and maintains what's happening on our consumer data hub. So that's our data lake that has kind of our identity resolution on that side. So it's a very powerful relationship on that end, right? Because as you can imagine, there's a number of audiences that we want to enrich as we make adjustments to our own consumer data stack that we want to enrich into Tealium. And so we're kind of working hand in hand in terms of integrity of consumer data, and then working very closely, whether it be the site teams, the UX teams, the marketing teams, on not only sharing what's already been created in Tealium. So a lot of times we're resharing, hey, these are some audiences that we recently stood up. This could be interesting for you guys for XYZ use case. And then we're also continually saying, what are the challenges that you're facing right now? And thinking through what additional audiences can we stand up together to create more relevant experiences for our consumers. And so while we're hands on keyboards, making sure that there's not multiple definitions of the same thing flying around in the system, air traffic control, It's definitely a collaborative effort.
Well, I love what you just hit on too, right? Being able to use the CDP to generate new insights, but also provide that data to your own internal data repositories and provide access to that information for other teams to generate new insights that can then be brought into the CDP and activated upon. So it really completes that circle of data sharing and collaboration. So I know we've only got a few minutes left, and we could probably spend another hour on this topic alone. I want to sort of wrap up here with advice. And Rob, I'm going to kick it over to you first. What I would love to really share with everybody is, like, what's the one piece of advice or one thing that you learned and you wish you knew earlier on in your journey with the CDP?
Yeah, so the big topic and takeaway for me is just that everyday reminder that your CDP is never going to be perfect, because of especially with the data that we're getting both from Hotwire and Expedia Group and mobile app, and collecting all this data from different sources. it's a large organization. All of these teams don't always necessarily talk to each other. So the kind of data that we can get on a daily basis can vary by source, the quality can vary. And so the thing that we always keep in mind when we're building out audiences or integrating with CDP is start small. Make sure that your use case is really well defined. And if there's data quality issues, one of the nice things about Tealium is Tealium can handle that, right? So don't focus, like people spend a lot of time thinking maybe, oh, I need to get my data layer absolutely perfect before I can integrate CDP. And the answer is not really. You can still build an audience without perfect data. Just know that your audience might need some improvement down the road, but you can start prototyping and refining things and understanding where you sit on your CDP journey. And I think that's kind of the most important thing is start small and then constantly reevaluate against your goals.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, but I think starting is always the key thing, right? We're all talking about it and planning it, but if you're not doing it, one of your competitors or somebody else is going to start getting ahead. And so you just need to start getting something in market to start achieving some of those, the value from the smaller use cases. Mukesh, what about you?
Yeah, and I totally agree with whatever Rob said. Start small, and in terms of data, also start small. Don't try to create a perfect customer profile with a lot of data, because as you grow, as you launch new use cases, you will need new data attributes. You cannot identify everything upfront. And from my perspective, I think stitching is also the key. Understanding how stitching works in Tealium CDP or any CDP for that matter is very important. If you are collecting data from various touch points into a single platform and you haven't spent enough time into identifying and understanding how those different data sets come together, then it's once you have ingested data, it's very difficult to go back and figure out what happened. So having that understanding and clarity is important. And although the data quality is not going to be, it's not a transactional system, so you cannot expect the data to be always correct, but also having periodic audit to ensure that we are not targeting the wrong customers because we ingested wrong data or they were stitched incorrectly. Having that kind of cadence audit would also be important, should also be important.
Absolutely. Great pieces of advice for individuals who are just starting their journey. Sarah, you're in the thick of it, and I'm going to switch it up for you. So what's really one thing that you're looking forward to in the remainder of 2021 addressing with the CDP?
Oh my gosh, there's so many things. I'm like all the things. As we continue to build out capability and operationalize what's on our roadmap, I think that's really exciting. I think the biggest thing is as we head towards places where obviously there's going to be some restrictions. So whether that be with the recent iOS update or what's going to happen down the road with the cookie apocalypse, there's just going to be, I think, a lot of challenges as it relates to how, we currently think about our ecosystem functioning and just then how important first party data is. And so from our side, it's continuing to learn not only how do we increase our known users, but also how do we continue to expand what we're doing with unknown users and browser-based audiences. And I think we're just kind of beginning to unlock what that means, but there's so many signals that come from consumers, even if we don't know who they are and they've never transacted with us, that we can start creating very compelling experiences for them in session that help them feel more confident about the decisions that they're making. And so in my mind, it's continuing to explore those things. And I think the challenges that are coming with identity just make it even more something that we've got to start to tackle and figure out so that we don't lose the relevance. That was the whole reason for that data in the first place. So that was very long-winded, but that's probably the thing I'm most excited about.
That is so great. And we're so excited just to see where the journey takes you. And again, I commend you all for just being shepherds of the CDP within your organization and just embarking on a space that's so important to marketing and really utilizing data within your organization. So look forward to potentially having other sessions with you guys to dig into these topics in more detail. But thank you again so much for your time today. This has been really insightful. Thanks everyone.
Paul.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.